Greetings from Augusta, Georgia, the Central Savannah River area. My name is Pastor Neil Tellier, and I am a tri-chair on the coordinating committee of the Georgia Poor People's Campaign, which I am a proud member of. And I come to you on behalf of the 4.6 million poor and low-income voters in the state of Georgia, where we represent 45% of the state's population. That's 45% of the state's population. Almost 50% of our state is poor and low income. I heard our friends in Alabama, Mississippi, and all across the country saying about the same percentage of people. Here in Georgia, though, an estimated 66.2% of the population voted in the 2020 election cycle. The Georgia Poor People's Campaign, the Poor People's Campaign, and the National Call for Moral Revival efforts reached over 39,000 non-voters from the 2016 to the 2020 election cycle, more than 3 times the margin of victory. And we can't claim to be the reason for that victory, but we sure as heck can show the power and impact that the poor and low-income voters have when they are more directly engaged together in the electoral process. So I'm here today to implore our leaders to pass the voting rights legislation and to help combat those extremely classist and racist voting legislation bills of all the states that have spoken before me and all those states that'll speak behind me. And in our state, it was called the Georgia Senate Bill 202, and they passed that into law on March 25th. Some of those provisions of the 98-page Senate bill being criminalizing the giving of water and snacks to those waiting in line. They are restricting and removing drop box access. There will be no weekend voting. So souls to the polls, one of the most famous and useful things that we have here in the state of Georgia for our church folks and our people of color that utilize was removed. The ability to send people home if the line is too long and tell them to return in our larger district. The ability to remove up to 4 members of a local election board. They said it would rarely happen. And we haven't even had any real elections yet. And they've already done it in 6 democratically leaning counties with a Republican-controlled Congress. So as I said in Washington, with the provisions of the 98-page Georgia Senate Bill 202 being heinous enough, it's the lies that these provisions support, the lies that they are trying to validate in order to undermine our democracy. With 60% of those who are specifically responsible for creating these laws actually believing that the 2020 election was in fact stolen. If it were not for these reprehensible lies, this bill would never have been written, as the same people that wrote these laws changed the laws in 2016 because they didn't like that Senator Barack Obama won 2 terms as the president. So they changed them to get their guy elected 45. So I ask today that Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock, it's time for our voting rights legislation to be passed. We ask that you compromise no longer and that you move forward together and not one step back.
We welcome you to the launch of the Mass Poor People's Low-Wage Assembly and Moral March on Washington, D.C., June 18, 2022.
And we need to do it with the biggest actions possible.
Because we know the only scarcity is the moral will to do what's right.
Veterans across this nation say enough is enough.
My voice is just as valuable as anyone else's.
We need the third Reconstruction.
We have an immoral system run by immoral people.
But together we fight.
And we become an agent of change.
We're rising up to demonstrate the compelling power that we, poor and low-income people, have to reconstruct society from the bottom up. It's time for a change!
We are people of resilience.